Welcome to EffluxEffects tutorials. Today we're going to look at exporting a Daz Genesis 2 character and importing them into Element 3D for use in After Effects. And in particular, we're going to look at the color range effect in Photoshop and how we can use that effect to improve the overall look of the character, and in particular hair like eyelashes, of course the head of hair, and the beard that we're going to put on a character. So we're going to jump into Daz here, and we're going to load up a base Genesis 2 male figure. Everything here works, Genesis 2, 3, or 8. Once the character loads, we'll go ahead and we'll put an outfit on the character. We're actually going to go into the content library under products, and I'm going to load up the espionage outfit that we used for the bunker scene in our short film, The Soldier Within. There are several different items here, and we'll just load them all up one at a time. And once we get done these, we'll load up some hair. And while I'm getting all this set up, the main thing is a lot of when we export the materials out of Daz, they export as JPEGs, and therefore without a transparency, Element 3D does not see the elements the same way, and therefore everything looks very blocky, very chopped up. And I'm going to show you how to use the color range and to create a PNG with transparency that can be recognized in Element, and again improve the overall appearance. So I'm going to throw a beard on here. Hair is always the trickiest part when we go to import things into Element 3D. So we'll take a look at that, and there you go. So we've got a fully dressed character. He's got a beard and a hair, and a lot of the tutorials you'll see they'll leave the character bald, they'll turn off the eyelashes, and they'll just tell you to deal with it. And I just figured I would show you a couple of different ways. In this case, on this tutorial, we'll focus on the color range effect. So I'm just going to throw in a pose here. I'm not going to throw an animation because again, I have other tutorials for animating these characters and bringing them into After Effects and Element 3D. So there you go. We've got a character. He's just set up to just taking a walk. I think that looks fine. The eyes positioning could be a little better, but we'll leave it where it is. So there's two different ways to export it. One is I found this script. It's actually a free script from MCJ GeoSender. And what's great about this script is you can send a single frame, the OBJ, or you can actually do an OBJ sequence, something that's not built into Daz. Pretty much the standard settings, select your frames that you want to export, tell it a folder you want to go, and when you hit OK, it'll process it, and you'll get one MTL file and one OBJ for each frame. And it's that simple, and I found that it works with all the characters. The other way is a built-in way, since we're only sending out a pose here as opposed to a full animation, is that we can just go into the file, export, and then under the save file type as, you want to make sure that's on OBJ, give it a name, tell it where to go, hit save. It'll come up with an export options, and pretty much everything standard will work. You don't have to make any changes. I will tell you that every once in a while I do have a problem, especially with the Genesis 3 characters, some of the outfits, getting them to import correctly into Element 3D. It takes a lot of work to bring in all the materials back. So use either one you want. I'll put the link for the GeoSender, and I would recommend you download that and use it. And just want to show you, there are a lot of different formats here for the standard export. Wavefront OBJ is what you want. For Element 3D, it's the only option you have. So we'll get out of there. We're pretty much done with Daz, and we'll go over to After Effects, and let's go ahead and set up a new comp. We'll hit composition, new comp, give it a name. I want high def, so it's 1920 by 1080. We'll leave the 30 frames a second, and we'll just click OK. And once we get that, we'll go ahead and go to Layer, New, Solid. We'll rename that Element and leave the width and height to match the comp. And if you're not sure, just click on Make Comp Size. Color doesn't really matter. And what we'll do is make sure that layer is selected. We'll go to Effect, Video Copilot, and Element. And you can see we're showing the transparent background, or you can you know, whatever background you want. But anyway, click on Scene Setup. And now we have a couple of different options. We can either, since this is a single frame, it's a single object, you can use the import, or you can go up to File, Import, 3D Sequence if you actually have an OBJ sequence. So the sequence will work with either. The import will only work and bring in just the frame you select. So in this case, we'll select the Daz 2 male that we exported, click OK. When you get the sequence import preferences, leave the load material as is. Make sure you're on physical shaders and everything looks good. Just make sure everything's selected. I like to force the alignment to from the model, and do not, if you are using Daz Characters, use auto normals. There are folks that do that, and what ends up happening is the mesh is not as smooth. So once the character comes in, you can see the scene materials have loaded, and in this case, the character's full size. If it's not, just go into Transform and select Normalize Size, and it'll take care of it. You can see the eyebrows, the eyes, but most importantly, look at the beard and the hair. I mean, that's unusable, right? And so what we end up doing is you can ignore it and just, again, make the character bald and turn off the eyebrows, and it doesn't, and then, you know, you lose the opportunity, right? Or don't do close-ups. So, but we can fix this. It's actually pretty easy. So I gave the character a name. Make sure that you're not on mesh view, and we'll scroll down. There's the eyelashes there. You can turn them off for now. We will actually use the color range effect. I'll show you how to get the eyebrows back. We're going to start with the beard though. So if we keep scrolling down, we can find the beard and the hair material. So there you go. And right now the beard looks awful, right? And there's nothing with an element you can do to fix that. So the standard shaders are JPEGs, and that's just how they're going to look. So how do we do that? You can leave the bump and the specular alone, and what we want to do is find the location of the diffuse map. And we can simply do that by clicking on our way through to the actual file location. You can, since we're only going to modify one texture, you can either copy the texture out of here, or you can copy the path and go in and copy all of the textures out. So in this case, just right click, select copy. I never want to modify anything in the original directory. This way, if I make a mistake, I can recover. So now I'm going to just go in and I'll just copy it over to the subdirectory, the hair. So now we have the diffuse layer, and I'll just change the view here so we can see it. And now we'll go into Photoshop, and we'll create a transparent background. So we need to make sure that we know what the layer size is. So the easiest way to do that is to actually just hover the mouse over, and here we'll head that way in just a second. Let's give that a name. Then let's figure out the size. Just hover the mouse over there, 512 by 512. So now we know where to set the height and width. And if it doesn't say pixels, just select it from the drop down. There you go. Click OK. And there you go. Now we'll just drag the beard, the JPEG into Photoshop. There we go. If you hit enter, it'll clear the transform, and now you can see the hair and for the beard and the individual strands, and we're going to go ahead and do our best to capture all of that. So first thing we want to do is go select, and then drop down to color range, and once that opens up, I'll show you a few things here real quick. This is the way it will look if you haven't used it before. And under select, you have sampled colors, and then you can actually tell it to just isolate certain colors. That's really good if you're modifying landscapes or just photos. But for this particular application, we're really using its ability to create a mask. So just put the eyedropper onto the background and just left click, and there are a couple of, and then you can use your fuzziness. You can see the more to the left, the more inclusive it is, and then the more to the right, the less. So it's a little hard to see with that little selection. So what I like to do is see, you have some different preview options. There's the white map. It's not too bad. That's not a bad one to use. You can, there are others here. I prefer grayscale, but you can see the main thing is you can get an idea of where the transparency will be. Here we go. But the grayscale is more representative, in my opinion, of what you'll see. And you can see some of the hair in the background coming through. So some of the areas will be transparent, some semi-transparent, and there you go. Now you can see where the mask will be for the individual hairs. And I think that looks good. So I don't think we really need to change it, but if you do, you can get out of it and you just go in again. We haven't done anything destructive. In fact, we won't. So just hit Control D, get out of it, go back into the select color range and make some more adjustments. I tweaked it a little bit. Actually like that better. And we can then go to Shift. And before we do select a mask, it's up there on the top. If you don't see it, just go over and select your marquee tool or your lasso tool and it'll come back and then you'll see select and mask. And if you hit Shift and select and mask, you'll actually get a series of tools over on the right that you can adjust. And of course, you can use there are different view modes. You can pick the one that's best for you. I should have inverted this. You can invert it before, you can invert it now. And so just simply selecting invert, now I'm where I need to be. And then I can look at the different view options to try and pick the one that I think is best for what I'm trying to accomplish. So in this case, I just want to see, the onion skin. So that's what it's going to look like when we get out of here. And the two tools I'm using here are Shift Edge, and because I can move the edge of the masks out, and I can also use the contrast to change the look on the semi-transparent layers in particular. I do not use feather and I don't use smooth. For hair, I find that when I do that, it really blurs everything, and it's not a natural look. So it doesn't blend it in like you might think it would. So I encourage not, and again, you can see if you start getting too much contrast, sometimes you can end up with a lot of sharp edges. So play around with the controls, mostly Shift Edge and contrast. When you're ready, just go output to new layer and layer mask and click OK. And there you go. So you can start seeing how the beard would look. Now, initial thought is you might not think this is looking very very good, but you'll see when we get in there, it's actually got a really good amount of detail. Another thing you can do is with the mask, select it, go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and then Hue and Saturation, and you can use the lightness control to kind of do the same thing, kind of adjust the way the semi-transparent layers will look. I don't do any coloration here or any of that because to me I can do that in Element 3D just easier. So once I've got it, I'll select File, Export As. Take a second to process, and once it comes up, you can see it's the Beard 512. You want to make sure the format's PNG with transparency, and make sure the image size remain the same. Then go ahead and hit Export. Go to your project directory and give it a unique name. I'm going to get real inventive here and just say New Beard. I'll put it in the hair subdirectory, and that's it. Hit save, and now we got it. So we now have the beard with the transparent background. So let's import that into Element 3D. Just go to the diffuse layer, click on it once, and click on the layer. Just have to click once. Scroll your way through to get where you stored the new beard, the PNG file. Select OK. You'll notice absolutely nothing changed. You can invert it. You can play with the settings. Nothing has changed here. So, and I'll show you why. So once we get out of that, what you'll want to do is in the Edit menu, you go all the way over to the right and select the little cogwheel, or you can scroll to the bottom and get to the Advanced tab. And where you want to go is under the Alpha Threshold. So it's right after the Force Opacity, and there you go. Now we're adding the alpha channel back in, and the stronger we go, you can see we can adjust the amount of hair and how it looks we can keep it lighter or heavier. simply by adjusting the alpha threshold. And there you go. I think that looks great. So, I mean, if you look at the difference, we started out with such a choppy effect, and now we've got realistic looking beard. We can see the different strands, and that's what we're trying to achieve. So just that quick with the color range effect, we fix the beard. So now we'll do the hair. The hair is going to be a little harder. There are actually some transparency masks that are a better approach to this, but if we don't have them or they're not available to us, we do have options. You don't have to give up or just have your character bald or put a hat on them. So first thing you'll notice under the hair 3, which will be basically the base cap of hair, is it had the transparency layer loaded into the glossiness. That does nothing, so I just turned it off. So what we'll want to do is we'll go to the directory where we're going to store the hair, and we're going to just we'll copy the diffuse layer into this directory. So hold on a second. Talking ahead of myself. So within element, with Control C, we copied the path, and you can see here's the boar's hair. We can actually copy all of it out. That was probably just as easy. So basically, once you got into the location, we got the path to the hair, and we'll just move it again. I don't like taking a risk with using any of the original materials, because I mean, you can reinstall it, but I don't want to deal with that. So we make a copy, and now we can go to Photoshop, and we can create a new, let's see what size the hair is. So we're going with D3. Be careful, sometimes the hair can be different layers of hair can actually have different layer sizes. So in this case, all the hair is 512 by 512. So we'll set up a new comp, and then we'll find the diffuse layer for hair 3. We'll drag it in, and now we'll use the color range effect to make this so we can get rid of the background. And it looks like it'd be pretty challenging, right? And it's amazing. The color range effect works really well. I mean, already it's close, and we just resample the background. Just make sure you have a good sample. Use grayscale, or well, frankly, any of the ones you want, and you got one slider. And since it's a bottom, we're going to make it a little darker, but we don't want it to be too dark, because then it'll look like a clump, and we'll lose the advantage of what we're trying to do, which was make the hair look full and give it depth and give it a more natural look. So I like that. Click OK. Take a look at your mask. Everything. The marching ants look all really good in my opinion. It's a little thick over on the right. You can duplicate the layer and just work on that one area if you want, and do that separate. Since it's the bottom layer, I'm not going to worry about that too much. So same thing we're going to do is go Shift, Select, and Match, and we're going to use the Shift Edge and the contrast to adjust. Same steps every single time. And don't be afraid if it's wrong. You just go back in and make some changes, and and try it again. So don't hesitate to go through a few iterations to get exactly where you want it. Since I like this, I'm going to go with new layer and layer mask. I always work with layer masks because, well, again, it keeps the base layer, and we can, if we make changes to mask, of course, it's easier to undo. So now I'm going to try something here. Layer, new adjustment layer, hue saturation, okay. We did this a little bit with the beard, and I'm going to take a look at the lightness. No, I don't want to change anything there. So I'm actually going to leave it as is. So File, Export As. Looks good. Navigate over to the directory. Give it a unique name. Save it. Run into After Effects, and now we'll bring the diffuse layer in. There it is. And once we've replaced it with the new hair, we'll click OK, and we'll go down to the Advanced tab, just as we did previously, and we'll adjust the alpha. And you can see where the thicker areas are, and you can see where it was kind of lighter, but we're really kind of just creating a shell over the top of his head. And we'll have to go in and spend a little time with all of this after, after we get all 3 layers in. To be honest with you, that probably looks good for what we're trying to accomplish, but we can, again, we can be sure here in a little bit. So now we're going to run over to hair 2. We're going to do the same exact process. We already know where the diffuse layer is, so we don't have to find the path. We'll just jump over. We'll need a new. We already know they're all 512 by 512, so we'll just create a new comp. Go over, find diffuse layer 2. There we go. Drag it in. Select OK. That looks good. Select, color range, sample the background, and then adjust the fuzziness to where you want it. Hair 2 is really, in my opinion, kind of highlights, right? So we don't want it to be too heavy. So I think that works. So select OK, take a look at our mask. I like that. We'll hit Shift, select a mask. We see we got to invert it. And now we're seeing the, yeah, I like that. So that looks good. Output 2, new layer with layer mask. Everything looks good there. I don't even need the hue saturation adjustment layer, so I'm going to export as, file, export as, and PNG with transparency, and navigate over to our directory and give it a name, and we'll save it. That looks good. Now we'll jump back into Element and we'll replace the standard JPEG with our new PNG. Same thing as always. Go over to the hair directory, new hair 2, select OK. Now we'll go to the Advanced tab, and we will again adjust the alpha till we get the look we're wanting to see here. These are still just underneath and accents, so don't worry too much till you get everything in. Also remember, we're using draft textures. You can get a little better look once we go to get rid of those. We'll turn them off here in a little bit. So same exact process for hair 1. So we're going to go, we already know where the location is. We already know, we can check it. It's 512 by 512, but we just need to go to Photoshop, generate a new comp. It's hair 1, 512 by 512. So we'll click OK, and we'll drag the diffuse layer in. Hit OK. Then select color range. You're seeing the pattern, I imagine. Select the background, adjust your fuzziness. Again, pick your selection preview. I like grayscale. And you want some semi-transparent areas and some transparent. I like that. Select OK. Then we'll go to Shift and select a mask. We'll invert it. And we can use the Shift edge if we want to refine the strands, give them a little more depth. I like that. New layer and layer mask. Select OK. We can go to File, or we can go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Hue Saturation if we want. I'm going to leave this one alone, so I'm just going to do a File, Export, Export As, PNG, Transparency, Export All. Tutorials, find the project directory. New hair, there you go. Jump over to After Effects and replace the diffuse texture. You notice we're not worried about any bump maps or gloss. Those there's no reason to change those. It doesn't have any effect. So on the hair, I mean, it has an effect on the hair and the way things look, but it doesn't prevent us from getting the look we want. So put in the new hair, select the cogwheel, go to alpha threshold, and pull the alpha back. So some of the things you'll see here is overall, I think it looks pretty good. When we change, we can spend some time looking at the environment and the specularity and all that. And we really won't do that here in order to keep this down to 30 minutes. But you can also go back. There are a few strands that seem to disappear and reappear. Well, you can go into the PNG file, or you can go back to the original, and you can work on those areas a little bit. For the tutorial, I think it's kind of made the point. You can see what we're trying to do. So get everything adjusted. We'll play with the alpha on a few of these. Yeah, that looks bad. There we go. And I think that's close. So, and again, like I said, we could of course spend some time and tweak a little bit on the forehead, but let's fix the eyelashes. It's very quick, same thing. Find where the eyelashes are actually located. Just click on the diffuse layer, then click again on the actual layer. Scroll down, find something that says eyelashes diffuse. Just copy it. Now we'll paste it in our directory. Let's get over to the character. We'll put it there. You can see that it's 2048 by 2048. So we'll go in and we'll make a new comp in Photoshop. File, new. Give it a name. Fix the height and the width. It's very important they match or the texture won't apply properly. And drag it in, hit enter. Go to select, color range, select the background with the eyedrop tool, adjust your fuzziness. We definitely know 0 is not the right number. Click OK. Mask looks good. Shift, select a mask. Invert. Now we have the transparent background. We can look at the shift edge. Doesn't do a lot on this one. Let's see about adding a little contrast. Really not changing it much. So we'll, oops, jumped out of there. Shift, select a mask. And sorry about that. New layer, output to new layer with layer mask. Try and get about where we were before, like that. Click OK. That's good. Keep the mask selected. New adjustment layer, hue saturation. Click OK. Adjust the lightness like that. Export. Export as. Export all. It's PNG. Just make sure you're still on PNG with transparency. Give it a new name. Click save. We're good. Close out Photoshop. Jump back into Element and replace the diffuse texture. New eyelashes, select OK. I like to invert them. You'll see why it allows me to add color, to change the diffuse color. If it's black, it's really hard to, it won't change it. You don't have as much control when you adjust the diffuse color. We can kind of see the eyebrows there, and they look pretty good, I'd say. And compared to what compared to what we started with, and it only takes a couple of minutes, so it's not even a difficult exercise. So jump into basic settings, diffuse color, just click on it, and you can see that the eyebrows are kind of red, so I want a reddish tint. If it was black hair or blonde, you could do the same, and so we're going to match the eyebrows a little bit, and I think that looks really good. And now you've got, let's turn off the draft textures, see what that does. All right, so there we are. So still a big improvement. Obviously, a little bit of work on with the alpha or even the original would be needed here. But it's very close, and again, I think you see the process, and again, for most uses here, it's still a great improvement. And like I said, just clean up just a little bit of the hair around the forehead and you'd be set. So we'll just show you real quick for the eyes. Just go to eye reflection, go to the physical shaders, go down to the advanced tab after replacing it with glass, drop it down to about 15. We're going to jump to the cornea, same thing. For the physical shaders, add the glass and drop the forced opacity. I'm sorry, I just said drop, didn't say what, but drop the forced opacity down to below 70. Replace the tear duct with the same glass and drop it down just about 75. So the reflection you want to drop down 10 to 20, and this way now we can see the eyes, the eyelashes. We can set up an environment. We'll turn it on so we can see it. Go to your environment under your presets and play around with the different environments, which will affect the reflection mostly in the eyes and some of the, as well as off some of the hair. So this kind of gives you an idea of some of the different shadings, different things you can do. I did the eyes real fast because, again, we were focused on the color range, but really just find a glass texture and adjust your forced opacity under the advanced tab. And you have to do both the cornea and the eye reflection. If it's a Genesis 3 character, it's eye moisture and cornea. So, and then you can decide if you like the tears. So there you go. I think it's a big improvement. I think it makes it much more usable. And there we go. We'll leave it at that. You can bring it into After Effects. So I would ask you to please consider watching our movie, The Soldier Within, and hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you.